the scarf is probably the... Well, I think if you don't have a uterus, you can still drink it for... So I'm going to... Yay! I think this is called the gusset part, and then I'm holding it for a thumb hole or whatever. I knit the pup. Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you for watching episode 2 of the Basic Stitch Knitting Podcast. This is a podcast where I share my knitting adventures, and every episode I hope to bring something of value to you, may it be in the form of some nerdy research that I've done or simply some pleasant companionship no matter what you're doing, driving, cooking, knitting, or just winding down. I'm Celine, your host, coming to you from Hong Kong. I can be found on Ravelry as Ochia, O-C-H-Y-A, and on Instagram as basic.stitch.knitting. Last week I launched my very first episode of the podcast on YouTube, and at the end of that video I said we are going to see each other probably 2 weeks later, but I lied. I got very excited about podcasting, so here I am. In this episode, I will talk about the KALs I'm participating in, my yarn haul from Deramores and Wool Warehouse. But before that, I'd like to talk about the tea I'm having today. Strictly speaking, it's not tea because it doesn't have the plant tea, the tea plant. I don't remember how the name is pronounced. I'll write it down below here. It's actually an infusion. It's a raspberry leaf infusion. From the brand Traditional Medicinals, it says it's a naturally caffeine-free herbal tea. It supports healthy menstruation, tones the uterus, and may be used for a menstrual cramp. I'm not having PMS right now, but I have actually very horrible PMS and very, very, very painful menstrual cramping problem. So I'm just trying this to help lessen the problem, and I read online that people also drink it during their pregnancy. According to my research, raspberry leaf was found to cause a relaxant effect on the uterus. It was believed that this relaxant effect caused the uterine contractions of labor to become better coordinated and more efficient, thus shortening the length of labor. Well, I think if you don't have a uterus, you can still drink it if you like the taste, because from what I read, there is no side effect associated to the use of raspberry leaf so far. And one thing I like about this brand of infusion herbal tea, and some other infusion as well, I guess Yogi Tea does it as well, is that they have some quotation attached to the tea bag. I particularly like this one, so I cut it. It says, "If you truly love nature, you will find beauty everywhere." And the main reason that I like this quote is because it's from Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh. Maybe I'll just call him Vincent. And then the quotation for the tea today, I don't want to bring this. I don't want to burn myself. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to burn myself. It says, "The creation of 1,000 forests is in one acorn" by Ralph Waldo Emerson. It actually reminds me of another Chinese expression, 千里之行始於足下. In English, it's 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I think this is a very, very famous expression, proverb. It just fascinates me how people in different parts of the world say very similar things. I mean, I believe Emerson probably had heard of Lao Tzu's famous expression before, but even before that, when you read like Confucius and Aristotle, they live in different parts of the world, and back then there wasn't really connection or communication or interactions between the East and the West. They kind of said very, very similar things. So, you know, I just believe that human wisdom just developed in more or less similar pace, you know, from ancient time. And then I like to address a request from a viewer Oh my god, it feels like a real podcaster now because a viewer actually messaged me on Ravelry, and it's actually not a request but more like a suggestion, which I'm very, very grateful for. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you very much for the message. So her question is not actually a question. She said, since I grew up in Singapore, can I talk a little bit about my knitting history? And I corrected her in the message, I'm not from Singapore. I grew up in Malaysia, which is actually very close to Singapore. They're just next to each other and their climate are very, very similar. And my knitting history or my, childhood experience with yarn and knitting would be very similar if I grew up in Singapore. So, yeah. So, let's talk about myself. My brother and I grew up a little bit in Malaysia when we were kids, and Malaysia is a hot place. It is hot all year round, and we came back to Hong Kong every winter for the school holiday. It's usually autumn, winter during the time when we were in Hong Kong. I remember being obsessed with scarves and knitting objects. I didn't know why at the time, but as I grew up, I guess I was just yearning for cooler weather. We don't really have real winter in Hong Kong, but sometimes it can get quite cold for me. But yeah, I always fantasized, and I do still fantasize about being somewhere else. And when I was about 11, me and my brother came back to Hong Kong and enrolled in a primary school. Every Friday there will be a hobby class where you enrolled in different hobby classes. I remember joining a knitting class. I was really happy because I really liked the idea of knitting. I knew nothing about it. And I remember the teacher was just teaching us how to cast on and also knit. We didn't learn how to purl, but now that when I think about it, it's totally sufficient. You don't want to learn how to purl when you're a kid or first starting to knit. So what we did was we knit garter stitch scarf, which is knitting. You knit on both sides of the scarf. It's the most basic stitch ever because what you need to do is just knit the whole thing. I remember casting on a lot of times because I would cast on and then I would knit a few rows or not even that, and then I'll slip a stitch. I wouldn't know how to do it, and then I'll just rip the whole thing and cast on again and again and again and again. And it actually wasn't difficult for me. I'm not sure if it's just inherently not difficult to cast on for a kid, or I was just doing it for too many times that it became second nature to me. While knitting is not as easy because of the tensioning problem. Once you get over the tension part, once you get like a good tension, knitting will be so much more enjoyable for you. So keep knitting until you get the right tension. And it usually have to do with how you put your yarn, how you swirl the yarn around your fingers. Just keep trying. And I grew up as a very, very competitive kid, so I asked my grandmother, my late grandmother, to help me to knit because I didn't want to be too slow. I wanted to get ahead of the class, or just not to be too slow. And I was a newcomer to the class as well. And my grandma was, when I think about it now, she probably wasn't a very good knitter because she told me something. She said, for every row you knit the first 2 stitches together so that the edge of the scarf will look very neat and tidy. And you know, if you knit the first 2 stitches together, the scarf would go thinner and thinner because knitting 2 together is a decreasing technique. To counteract that, my grandma would pick up some random strands from the row before to increase a stitch. It's not a very tidy or neat stitch, so eventually it grows longer and longer for some reason, despite the knitting together at the very first stitch. It doesn't make sense to me right now. So for those who are interested in knowing how to have a knit and tidy edge for your knitted objects, and if you're a new knitter and you don't know this trick, what you need to do is to slip the first stitch of every row, that's it. you'll slip it and then you'll knit everything else, and then you turn to the other side and you'll slip that first stitch and you'll knit it. I don't know how to explain it to you, but you will just do it and you will see the edge of the scarf or anything on a flat that you're knitting will have like a chain stitch looking thing on the edge. And in the last class, my teacher asked us to bring our finished objects to the class, and I brought it because I finished it. My grandma finished it. So, but I didn't want to show anybody. I didn't want to show the teacher, so I told her I forgot to bring it because I was too embarrassed. It was a scarf that grows larger and larger, wider and wider, with a lot of holes in it, and it's in light baby blue, but in some section of the scarf it looks like somebody has spilled tea on it. So I was just very ashamed of it. I don't really feel ashamed of anything like that now because I forgive myself probably too easily for mistakes I've done in knitting and also in a lot of things in my life. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but back then when I was a kid I was quite stubborn. I was so much more a perfectionist and very competitive, always wanted to win in competitions. Not sports competition, but say for example in terms of academic results and things like that. So like being very Asian about it. So I just put it in my plastic bag and I didn't take it out. I probably showed my friend a little bit and they were like, oh my god, it was so huge, so long, you actually finished it. But I just really didn't want to show it to my teacher because I knew too well that if I showed it to the teacher, she would probably show it to the whole class and be like, look at this. Congratulations to Celine. You know, I didn't want that. I don't have the scarf with me now. I hold on to memories, but I don't hold on to objects, physical objects. If something is purely sentimental or it's only associated with memories, fond memories, I don't usually keep it if I could not foresee myself wearing it or using it in the future, in the near future. I didn't knit until 2 years later, I believe, when I was in secondary school. I knit a brown scarf garter stitch, of course, because that's the only thing I knew how to do. Nobody taught me how to purl, and YouTube didn't exist yet, so I didn't really know where to learn how to purl, and I didn't even know purling existed, so I wasn't too curious about how people made all these wonderful things. And to start with, not a lot of people in Hong Kong knit, actually, so it's not something that I got curious, even though I liked the idea of knitting in yarn when I was a kid. There just wasn't a lot of resources back then, let's say, and not enough curiosity on my part, maybe. I cast on a brown scarf and it took me 7 years to finish it, and it's a very short scarf. In the 7th year, my best friend was leaving for the States, and she came to my place before that, and she saw my knitting project because I was showing her probably, and she thick-skinnedly asked me to give it to her. She said, finish it and give it to me. So we went to YouTube together and searched for a video to teach me how to bind off, and that's the first time in my life to bind off a knitting project. And it wasn't difficult at all, but I remember how we actually got to the video. I mean, I'm not sure because we didn't know the technical term of binding off at that time. So we probably just searched knitting and then looked at the very basic videos, because bind off is a very basic technique, and I guess that's how we learn it. We watched it together and I knit it, and she would be there telling me how to do it, like, right now, do this. Like, we literally did it together. And the scarf is actually a bit too short for everybody's liking, and I don't believe she has ever worn it. Fast forward to the summer of 2015, I was decluttering my room, which is something I did and I still do regularly. I saw my knitting projects and I decided to finish it. It's another blue garter stitch scarf that I cast on, and I decided to finish it because if I don't finish it, everything, like the whole knitting object plus some other yarns that I was having, had to go. So I cast on, I continued to knit and I bind off, again following another YouTube tutorial video because it has been forever since I last did it. And I discovered a lot of other tutorials and things look very interesting, and I had 2 to 3 balls of black yarn, I believe, because back then when you were a kid, I bought the yarn when I was a kid, so black is super cool, right? I probably wouldn't buy yarn in black now because it's just so difficult to see what you're doing there, and it's so difficult to mend the problem if you actually managed to notice the problem. So it was black yarn that I had, and I cast on a herringbone stitch scarf this time. Oh my god, such an advancement in my knitting life. Herringbone stitch still looks very good to me. And almost at the same time I discovered something greater than my life, and that is knitting podcast. I'm not sure that was my first podcast that I watched, but it was definitely the first podcast that I watched all of it. It's Molly's A Homespun House podcast. I remember watching it day and night whenever I had time because I was still a student, so I had a lot of free time. And I just felt a really sweet companionship from Molly when she talked about her grandma and her very sweet daughters, Elodie and Ruby Sue. I just felt like I knew her already. I was very much attracted by her elegance and her aesthetics. And I heard about Ravelry from her, and I joined Ravelry because I wanted to join her group. And Ravelry opened another knitting world to me, and I would say without Ravelry and without knitting podcasts, I don't think I'll be knitting. I don't think I'll still be knitting. It just keep you knitting. There's so many patterns. There's so many nice people on there. And yesterday I came home and I looked at my computer and I saw a notification from YouTube that Molly from the Homespun House commented on my video. I couldn't believe it. I totally couldn't believe it. I thought it was just another notification for like Molly's update, a new video, because I've subscribed to her on both my podcast account as well as my personal account. But it's not. She wrote something under my video. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't! And she agreed with me! She agreed that patterns like flax sweater is very special because it's like a community thing. And if you're curious whether I've woven in the answer is a resounding no. I still have it somewhere here. Oh, it's here. It's still here. I'm proud. I can totally record the whole video with this tangling here. But I probably should not do it because I feel like I will lose you. So that's a very long account of my knitting history. It actually is very short because I didn't knit a lot, but I probably am just not very organized. It became a very long story. And also, Molly actually got me started knitting socks. Before that, I would not have thought that I would knit socks in my life. And I also didn't know that people actually knit socks. And I remembered going to a local yarn store and asked for sock yarn. She said we didn't have sock yarns. And then she suddenly remembered that she actually had some sock yarns in the store. And there are probably only 2 colorways. One of the colorway is in blue and gray, I believe. And another one, I don't remember which color it is. Probably a little bit of red or purple. And she suggested me take the red or purplish one because it's more feminine, and she said like girls knit with this color. First of all, I love blue and I love gray. And second of all, it's not that I don't like to be feminine. It's that I don't care whether I'm feminine or masculine. I don't care. And I don't like how she suggested that some colors are more feminine and some colors are more masculine, and I probably shouldn't be knitting in the masculine color if I'm knitting for myself. So I immediately went for the gray and blue one. So my very first pair of socks look like this. It's knit from Fortissima Colori Soccer Color, or color. The first one looks ugly. I've worn it a couple times during the winter when I sleep, and I've not woven in the ends. I mean, I believe this is like the theme of my knitting life. I don't want it to be, but it's how it works. And the ribbing is the ugliest I've ever seen. And here, I'm not sure if you can see it, there are some ridges of garter stitch here. Not garter stitch, but reverse stockinette here, and another ridge of it here. I forgot like the correct direction of knitting, so at some point I reversed the direction of the knitting, so it's reversed stockinette. And I didn't want to rip it back because back then I didn't know how to pick up stitches. I didn't know how to tink back stitches. And I was doing a heel flap and gusset. And the second sock looks infinitely better without stupid mistake that I did in my first sock, and it just looks smaller and the ribbing looks more reasonable and it's just sleeker. And this is the only pair of socks that I ever knit like a gusset and heel flap kind of heel, because soon after that I purchased the pattern for the Fish Lips Kiss heel because Molly talked a lot about it. And that became the only sock heel I ever knit. I will probably want to knit some other heel flap or gusset type of heel flap later on in my life, but for now I'm very happy with Fish Lips Kiss heel. And this is the second sock that I knit, probably, or third. It's from, let me see, it's from King Cole Riot, and the colorway is Funky. Do I like the color? Do I love the color? I don't really think so. And it actually has a very, very heavy halo. Not exactly pilling, but very heavy halo. I knit it in Hermione's everyday sock, but it's incredibly warm. It's a single ply yarn. It's a joy to knit with, but I don't really like the color. I don't like things that goes from one color to another very, very gradually. What do you call it? Gradient. I don't like gradient color. So enough for history. Now I'd like to talk about the KALs I am participating in. There was a pause because every time I pronounce the word kale, I think of kale. The kale that you eat, like the superfood that we all love. Not all of us, but I do. I love it. KAL, knit along, same thing. So the first KAL I would like to talk about is the Skeindeer Knit podcast KAL called the Selbu Mittens KAL. To join the KAL, you will need to purchase and download her pattern on Ravelry. It's called Selbu Mittens by Skeindeer Knits. I showed it in my last episode. I cast on probably 2 days or 3 days ago, and this is what I got now. This is the waist yarn I used to hold the thumb gusset, do you call it? I think this is called the gusset part, and then I'm holding it for a thumb hole or whatever. And this is how it looks like now, the other side of it. This is the first stranded knitting I've ever done, and it doesn't look perfect, but I'm very happy. And of course, it helped me to achieve one of my 2017 knitting goals, which is to learn how to do stranded knitting. I knit the mittens with Drops Charisma, which is 100% superwash wool. It says it's superwash, but it feels quite sticky. It doesn't have that very sleek superwash feeling to it. There was a very small knot at the very beginning of the yarn, so I just cut it off and felt them together, back together. And there isn't any problem with felting it. Are you supposed to be able to felt a superwash yarn? I'm not sure. But it doesn't really feel super washy at all. And it's in white, and this color is actually not black. It's called Anthracite Mix. But it looks to me a very heathery or like natural black wool that you will see on a sheep instead of like pitch black wool. There will definitely be sheep that is pitch black, but this is not one of those. But it's still a fairly black wool. And I was thinking about knitting the mittens in some other non-traditional colors because I did see people do that and it looks so beautiful. But this is my first pair of Selbu voter looking mittens. It's a Selbu mitten, so I wanted to be traditional. And this is the color choice. Kind of boring, but I love things traditional. And I'm yet to figure out how to knit the thumb. I'll be fine with more YouTube video. I'll be fine. I put the project in a small tote bag like this with a dancing polar bear. Is he dancing? I don't know. He looks a little bit awkward, but he seems to be having a good time dancing. And I bought this a few days ago from Daiso at 12 Hong Kong dollars, so it's like £1. I love it. I really love things like this. I love cheap things. I'm a very, very basic girl. I am very low maintenance. And that is part of where the name of the podcast came from. I'm a basic. Yeah. So as much as I'd love to say that after deciding the color I'm going to knit my mittens, I jumped right into knitting myself a swatch so that I can check my gauge and to compare my stranded knitting gauge with my plain stockinette gauge. It would be the furthest away from the truth. I usually cast on the project straight away. I don't do swatches. The only time I did, I was knitting a sweater, my Flax sweater, and I have not heard anyone not warning you to knit a swatch before you start to knit your sweater because fitting is very important. But that time, which was the first and only time I ever did a swatch, it was a very small swatch. It looks like this. And it looks like this at the back. So it's knitting in the round. This is literally the smallest swatch in the world, I believe. Can you even call it a swatch? I counted the number of stitches in an inch and I took that figure and times 4 to get the gauge. It's such a half-hearted swatch. Yeah, I follow the rules, but I did it half-heartedly. I'm a reluctant rule follower. Anyway, I jumped right into casting on and knit the cuff for the Selbu mittens. And after the cuff part was done, I happened to get curious about the fit. It looks like this. And I'm going to wear it for you. God. Right. Did you see how it struggled? And I wasn't sure if I want to, frock it because this is the first time I did stranded knitting, so it was very precious. I don't want to just frock it back. Also, this yarn is super hard to frock. I cast on and did a little bit of like the beginning part here, and then I realized I made some mistakes, so I frocked it because it's just like few rows in. It curls like crazy. It was so wavy and it looks like some instant noodle. I'm not sure if that reference worked for you, but maybe instant noodles is a very Asian thing, but that's the only thing I can think about. It's like this. It's impossible to frock. So, I actually asked Ellie on her chatter thread. She just said, check your gauge. And I checked my gauge. I didn't check my gauge before asking her, so I felt like I asked a stupid question. It's 28 stitches when the suggested gauge is 22 to 24 stitches. Way off. So I knew I couldn't get around with this, so I had to just cut the yarn, and I still put it on the needles because I was still thinking if I could turn it into something else, like a phone cover. It will take forever for me to put on or off. This is like a baby size. So and then I cast it on, and then I changed into a 4.5 needles, which is larger than any needle suggested by Lilli. I'm shocked by my gauge. Like 4.5 millimeter needle only gives me 24 stitches in 10 centimeters. So it was a very, very tight gauge. I didn't know because I'm never a tight knitter, and if anything, when I was doing the stranded knitting, I probably deliberately knit a little bit looser, even though Lilli has warned us not to do that. It's still too tight. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, this is my first stranded knitting, and there is still a lot for me to learn. And the next KAL I'll be participating in, well, not yet, but I will, is You're My Hero KAL, hosted by Bakery Bears podcast. I'm having the thread here, the charter thread here with me, so that I can read what Kay wrote about it. So she said, "Would like you to choose your favorite hero. This could be a superhero or a literary hero or any other person or character that you admire. You can then knit something that is either in the colors of the hero or something that reminds you of the character. Alternatively, you could knit something to give to your hero. This could be a family member or friend, etc." When I heard about the KAL, the first character I thought of was, of course, Hermione Granger. I am a big Harry Potter fan, and so are many friends of mine. And Hermione Granger is an easy choice because she's smart, she's brave, she is supportive of her friends, and she's beautiful. I mean, when it's Emma Watson. But I think it might be too easy a choice, and also it's associated with Emma Watson, who I am very jealous of. You know, like, I grew up loving Hermione Granger and Belle from Beauty and the Beast. I grew up loving them and wanting to be them because they read a lot, they're smart, they're pretty, and now Emma Watson has it all. So I chose somebody else. And this is somebody that I liked a lot as well, and she is a young little girl. She reads a lot as well. She's very smart, she's kind, she has supernatural power. Who is she? Matilda! So Matilda is a book written by Roald Dahl, and when I was in secondary school, junior secondary school, we were made to read Matilda. In the first year, we were made to read Matilda and Charlotte's Web, I believe. And the second year is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and The Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe in whatever order. Matilda was probably my first or second book that I actually read in English. And I loved it. I loved the story, and I loved Matilda. She reads a lot. She takes initiative to read. She's considerate, and she's not snobbish about how smart she is. I don't have the book with me anymore because I don't hold on to objects, including books, actually. You know, I still have a lot of books in my room, but then they are books that I've not read and books that I'm pretty sure I will want to reread. But Matilda has been with me for many years, and I had not thought about rereading it, so I donated it. But recently I wanted to read the book again because after Kay and Dan talked about the KAL, I thought about my hero, and it has to be a heroine, not a hero, because I'm a girl, and of course you can say a girl can learn from a guy, but because the society we're living in is still very much a very patriarchal one, the life experience of a girl and a boy is gonna be different. What we face and what we encounter and how people treat us, the very, very small, subtle things that happen every day that we experience are gonna be different. So it just makes more sense for me to find a girl as my role model. And if it's not Hermione Granger and if it's not Belle, like Belle is actually, well, now, I mean, she's nice, she reads a lot, and she looks beyond the surface of, you know, the beast. So, which I think is very kind. Like, if it's not two of them, who then? And Matilda just slowly strolled into my mind. And then I saw a post on Pinterest about who is your literary alter ego, and it's Matilda. Can you believe it? And I quickly went to Google how Matilda looks like, because I know there is a movie. I have watched it when I was in school, but I don't really remember. And I was thinking she probably doesn't have like a color, because it's not like she is Bernie or Pierre Rabbit. You know, Matilda is a person and she probably wears different things every day. But to my surprise, Matilda actually wears blue all the time. Sometimes it's navy blue, sometimes it's baby blue, and she wears blue with white. And I'm like, oh my god, is not blue my favorite color? So I'm going to change my profile picture on Ravelry to Matilda very soon. I've not decided yet what I'm going to knit, because I just want to finish the Selbu mittens now. But yeah, I'll let you know if I have decided what I'm going to knit for that KAL. Now, time for my yarn haul. It's getting a little bit hot in my room, so I have taken off my Flax sweater. And this is the yarn I bought from Wool Warehouse. So according to my record here, I placed order with Deramores earlier, but I actually received a parcel from Wool Warehouse a few days earlier. And it happened last time as well, so judging from the two experience that I had with them, Deramores are slower with the shipping. I mean, shipping from UK to Hong Kong. And then I'm going to talk about this. It's a lot of drops, because I feel like I heard a lot of different things from drops. A lot of them are quite positive and I want to try all of them. And if I don't like them, it's fine. I'll just move on to other brands. But so far I just want to try everything. And this is actually a continuation of what I said in the first episode. So I'm going to... Yay! So I've created a mess for myself. I have a very, very organized folder here. The first one is Drops Alaska. Alaska? Alaska, more gray? Navy? More navy? Cream? Yeah! More cream. And some dark mustard. It blooms after washing. Some people say even after washing it in washing machine it still looks perfectly new, but some people do say it is pilly, it pills a lot, and also it looks old very fast. So I just need to try it myself and see if I like it. The second drops yarn I like to show you is the Drops Alpaca. I bought one skein of it, and it is in the purple-red mix, or red-purple mix, and it's 100% alpaca. It comes in, it says sport weight, but according to what people say on Ravelry, it is more like a fingering weight than a sport weight, and it does feel like a fingering weight. And it's sheddy. I can totally tell that it's sheddy. I plan to use it probably in a shawl, not a KAL. And I will not use it near my neck. I don't even know what I'm going to use it in. Maybe a mitten, maybe a pair of mittens. Who knows? Like, I'm not that clueless. Usually when I buy yarn, I have some form of projects at the back of my mind. I don't buy and just hoard them. But now when I see it, I'm not sure like if I'm going to use it on my original project, but there will always be a way to do it. And the third yarn I'm going to show you is Drops Charisma. I bought Charisma in brown and in navy. I think it's called dark gray blue, is it? Right, dark gray blue and dark mustard. and also the white and the anthracite that I showed you just now that I used to knit my Selbu mittens. So what I read about this online is that it peels quickly. It won't stop after washing. It felt very easily, and then it creates a very hard fabric. So if that's not what you're looking for, you don't want a hard sweater, then maybe try something else. And I only read the Ravelry comment before recording the video, and now I feel like, why did I even buy it? But, well, I think the reason why I bought it is because Ellie talked a bit about it before. She knit quite a lot of things in Charisma, and she didn't seem to have any problem with it. So maybe it's like isolated case that people didn't like it. I'll just try it myself, and I hope it's good because Ellie likes it. She likes a lot of different yarn, like more rustic yarn. She likes a lot of like Norwegian yarn and Shetland yarn. I'm not saying she only knits with Charisma, but she said good things about it, so I am trying it. And oh, did I say Drops Charisma comes in a DK weight, and it is a DK version of Alaska. And the next yarn I like to show you is Drops Lima. Drops Lima is the DK version of the very famous Drops Nepal, and it's 35% alpaca and 65% wool. It's less woolly, less sticky than the 100% wool version, but I feel like, I mean, you can still do stranded knitting with it. I know somebody does it. Lilli from the Nordic Stitches podcast is knitting her kofta, her sweater or cardigan, in Lima, I think. And the last batch of Drops yarn I like to show you is Drops Saffron. It's 100% cotton. It is 4-ply, meaning fingering weight, and it does feel like a thinner 4-ply. People say it's springy, but I don't know. I mean, how can a cotton yarn be springy? I don't know. It just feels like string to me. It's saffron, and some people say it forms drapey fabric, if that's what you're looking for. And it's not splitty, but there are surely people who say it's very splitty, so I'll need to try it myself. I think Ellie from the Skeindeer Knits podcast knit her pot holder with saffron, so I'm going to try it. I'm going to try saffron. And next up will be some non-drops yarn. First off, I have bought some sock yarns because you really don't have to think when you buy sock yarns if you're a sock knitter. And this is my first ever opal. It comes in the colorway Opal Strandgoed Driftwood. The colorway is Driftwood and the series is Strandgoed. And then 2 Regia. I've knit with Regia before, but it's like plain color, and this is my first like painted design line of Regia. It's both, they are both Aran and Carlo. I'm pretty sure it's not focusing enough. No, I've not dealt with the focusing issue yet. Dan, thank you for offering to help. I'm so grateful, but I'll try how to focus first because I need to figure out what's the problem before I can communicate with you what I think is the problem so that you can give me a solution. But really thank you for your warm words, beautiful words, and support, and you know, even offering to help me. I'm super happy because I'm like the biggest fan of Bakery Bears podcast. UNK is my light. So dramatic. So anyway, this is I don't know which one is which one, but I bought it in Garden and also Summer Night. And I think this is Summer Night and this is Garden, or this is Garden, this is Summer Night. I don't know. Anyway, they are Aran and Carlo design line. And then I bought myself 2 skein of Let Lurpy. It's 100% Icelandic yarn. It's Aran weight and it is scratchy as hell. I mean, I'm not allergic to wool at all, of course. I don't think I'm very allergic to scratchy yarn as well, and for one thing, I'm definitely trying to get used to scratchy yarn because Ellie said it's something that you can get used to, and I want to get used to it because there are so many beautiful yarn they're scratchy. I mean, I was in Loop London last year, and then I saw some very, very beautiful rusticy yarn, and I touched it and it wasn't soft, and back then to me that was a sign of, you know, subpar quality. But now I know, like from Ellie, some yarns are meant to be scratchy, and usually the scratchier the yarn, the sturdier it is, and it does get softer with wash over 30 years maybe. I mean, it's something that I really want to try. And this a colorway that is totally out of my comfort zone. It is called Green Spring Heather, I believe. And green, I never like green. I just don't like it, so it's like totally out of my comfort zone. I just want to take this chance to do something else and use a color that is not my favorite. And they look good, and they look very, very similar to the color shown on website as well. And all in all, I must say, Wool Warehouse is doing quite a good job with color reflection. And the last yarn I bought from Wool Warehouse is this. It is Cascade 220 fingering weight, and it's 100% wool. The colorway is in the navy, and the only reason why I bought it is because Kay has nothing bad to say about Cascade 220. 220. I always feel like, you know, I never felt like I pronounced the word two in a very funny way, but when I listened back to my podcast, I was like, 220. I don't know how you pronounce it, 220 maybe? Anyway, so it's Cascade yarn 220 fingering weight, and I like it. It's not the softest, but I don't look for a softest yarn anymore. And according to Kate, it doesn't pill. You can knit toys, you can knit sweater, you can knit anything in it. And then the funny thing I found out about my batch of yarn is that Cascade 220 in the navy and Drops Lima navy, they look exactly the same, except this is DK and this is fingering weight. Yeah, this is actually a fingering weight that looks more like thicker than normal fingering, but like it. I love it. Springy, springy! But that's not all, because I bought something from Deramores as well, but it's not yarn. It is some polyester craft filling for toys and cushions, because I want to force myself to get started on toys knitting, which I can't foresee myself doing this month anyway, but yeah. And then some more sock yarn, and this is Heart and Soul from Sidar, and the colorway is called Dilly Deli, such a cute colorway. And I knit with Sidar before, I knit with Heart and Soul before, and I loved it, And the colorway this time is very beautiful as well. The one that I had before is blue, the blue and white colorway. Some blue-faced Leicester from West Yorkshire Spinners, DK prints. It is 100% wool, and I believe it's 100% blue-faced Leicester BFL. And I'm actually pretty obsessed with West Yorkshire Spinners. I'm not sure if it's obsession or I just feel a special connection with this brand because Kay and Dan, they talk about it a lot. And I actually bought, when I was in England, I bought West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply in blue tits as well, and there's more connection with the colorway blue tits because it's a colorway that the Jones found funny, and it's funny. So I love it. The West Yorkshire Spinner signature 4-ply is made of 75% wool and 25% nylon, I believe. Yes. And out of the 75% wool, 35% of it is BFL. And BFL is known as a sturdy wool. I bought this when I was in England. Probably in Scotland. Probably in Edinburgh. And I bought this. I mean, I know that Kay later said she found that West Yorkshire Spinners can be a little bit not so sturdy when you knit socks in it. But I guess you can still knit something else with it. Stylecraft Cotton DK Classic. Super bright red for my friends who are allergic to wool. Actually, only one of my friends is allergic to wool, so yeah. And then I bought some needles as well, some Eddy and some Haya circular needles. Nothing special. I think I bought 3 to 4 pairs of them. I only buy circular needles because I am a circular girl. I don't knit with anything else. And I am like the very basic circular girl because I don't knit with interchangeable circular needle. And it's not like I don't want to knit with them, it's just that I don't have any of them. And it's also not like I've heard a lot of bad things about it, but it's just that I never heard about anything bad about the normal circular needles. At least not for like the Eddy Turbo or Eddy Lace and Haya Sharp. Everybody seems to love it, and they are very affordable as well. Like one common thing I heard about interchangeable is that sometimes the joint between the cord and the needles can be a little bit faulty or just, you know, not as smooth as a non-interchangeable one. For now, I'm quite happy with non-interchangeable, normal, basic circular needles I have. I'm so glad that the haul is over because I feel like I've been talking forever. Because my brother's camera actually stops recording every 20 minutes and it shows no sign. It doesn't tell me it's 20 minutes. So I just kept on talking, and then when I checked the video footage, a large chunk of it was missing. And this is not the first time it happened. It happened last time I was recording as well, and I had to do the whole thing again. I don't know why I didn't set an alarm. I have just set an alarm and it will go off at 20 minutes and 10 seconds. I don't know why I didn't do it earlier, if that's a problem. But anyway, I've been talking about the same thing over and over again because of that technical problem, and I feel like I really need something to drink. Do I have some here? Yes. So, I really want to end this as soon as possible, not because I'm tired, but because I want to keep this 40 minutes long. I talked to Adrian. I invited him to come watch my video as well, and he said a lot of good things about the podcast, which I am very grateful. And he also asked me who I'm targeting, like my target audience of this podcast. Adrian definitely is targeting a very special type of audience in his mind because Adrian is a very busy man and he doesn't have time to sit down and just watch podcast for hours. So he wanted to produce videos targeting people who don't have the time to watch long podcasts. So his podcast style is very much straight to the point, not a lot of rambling, and very crisp and short. I'm one of those people who watch podcasts for companionship, so I told him I'm not really sure who I'm targeting at, but I usually watch it for companionship, so I hope people who watch my video, they feel the same thing that I like. I enjoy a lot of long podcasts and I like short podcasts as well, but there are pros and cons in both of them. The long ones, sometimes if it's like 1 hour and 30 minutes, it's a little bit too long for me because I just lose my attention, while the very short one, like 20 minutes long, it's harder for me to form connection with the podcast host. So I want to do something in the middle, like 40 minutes, so it's not too long but not too short, so you can enjoy my companionship and at the same time form some connection with me. Anyway, before ending this video, I just really want to say a big thank you to a lot of people. Dan Jones from the Bakery Podcast, thank you for watching my video and be the first subscriber of my podcast, and also offering to help me with my focusing issue. And one thing, you know, you said you are the first subscriber to my podcast, so I told my boyfriend, oh my god, Dan has subscribed to my video, and I mean to my podcast, and he's the first subscriber. And he said, wait, but I thought I was the first subscriber. So basically, you know, the subscriber count and view count on Facebook are usually very unreliable, and then both Dan and my boyfriend, they don't show the world who they are subscribed to. So even I can't see who subscribed to me if you are like have private setting. And for both of them, maybe they watched the video more or less at the same time. So for both of them, when they were watching the video, the subscriber count is both 0. So they both think they are the first subscriber. And who is actually the first subscriber? It doesn't matter. I just want to say big thank you to you, Dan, and big thank you to my boyfriend. And yay, congratulations. I don't know, like, how often do you become the first subscriber to some podcast or just some YouTube channel? And then thank you to Adrian as well, Adrian from the ALTERKNIT podcast. Thank you for your nice word, and then thank you for the very, very helpful suggestions and comments as well. And Barbara from Knitting I Love, you are beautiful. You're such a beautiful angel. Thank you for having interactions with me both here on the YouTube channel as well as on my Instagram account. And then Rhonda, thank you for PMing me and told me how you appreciate my podcast, and also giving me suggestion about what I should be talking on my podcast. It's really nice to hear from you, and it's really nice to know what people want to hear from me. Thank you to Molly for commenting under my video because it just made my day. Thank you to my friends who I chose to share this podcast, the existence of this podcast with, and thank you for your nice words. Even though you don't knit, and even you had to watch my video muted when you're working. And also thank you to the boyfriend who gets very excited about the podcast. So thank you very much. And if you're here with me now, and if you like the video, if you like what you have just watched or heard, you can choose to click the like button or comment down below or subscribe to my channel, which will make me very, very happy. And also you can follow me on my Instagram as well. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys next week, and I hope I'm not lying this time. Bye bye!